Thank you also to Kevin Warren. Your remarks, I think they resonate so clearly with us here in Central New York because the story that he's told is a story that we see in our own region. We live in a region with an amazing legacy of invention. It has defined us for generations. We have proudly developed products which have quite literally changed the world. Agricultural inventions, which brought heavy machinery to the farm and dramatically increased food production. The typewriter, which literally changed the way we work. The air conditioner, which opened up climates to live that had previously been inhospitable. What's not as well known is that the people behind many of these products passed through the same building, a modest 20,000 square foot structure on South Geddes Street. In 1880, a 29-year-old inventor bought the building and opened a machine shop. Charles Lipe created products ranging from cigar rolling machines to motion picture equipment. Alongside his own business, he rented space to dozens of young entrepreneurs. He worked with them, he shared his equipment, and he shared his ideas. Over time, this building became known as the Lipe Shop and was seen as a haven for inventors and an incubator of industries. In 1939, the Syracuse Journal looked back and described it this way: "These men have sowed the germs that sprouted into major business enterprises in Syracuse and elsewhere. In all, more than 150 patents are connected to that building." Today, perhaps fittingly, it is a hardware store. But the companies that it spawned are a proud part of our history, and the spirit of invention that gave that building meaning remains as potently important to our region today as it did more than 170 years ago. We've seen our share of trying times since the days of the Lipe Shop, that's no secret. And understandably, people who know and care about this region have openly lamented its losses. Take downtown Syracuse, for example. As if channeling Jane Austen or Charles Dickens, Dick Case had our attention from the very first words of a 2006 column. He said, and I quote, "The truth is, most days, downtown Syracuse is pathetic." Dick went on to describe Syracuse's central business district as dirty and aging gracelessly. Now, I remember that column vividly, and I remember resenting it. The words, the tone, because the seeds of renewal had already been planted. A committed group of anchor institutions, a first grant for the Landmark Theater, plans to build a new transit center, 4 buildings in the Pike Block under our community's control, though not yet finished. I resented it, even though he was right. And his civic-minded cynicism pushed us forward. Now, that was 6 short years ago. And what strikes me today as I stand here is how far removed we are from that reality. Change has already come. Cranes have dotted the skyline. Many of those projects are either completed and new ones are underway. The reinvention of our center city is no longer bubbling beneath the surface, but is rising from the ground. Last year, in one of his last columns, Dick recognized downtown's revival, but closed on this note: "We will never have the downtown that we used to have." Again, he was right. That is the very nature of reinvention. The same holds true for our regional economy, which will never again be dominated by a few industrial powerhouses, the way it was when Carrier's campus was a booming manufacturing center, or when GE was a virtual printing press for patent applications. Reinvention is hard and sometimes painful, and in the end, things will look different. But different need not mean lesser, or incomplete, or, to use Kevin's word, unsustainable. Now, 6 weeks ago, there was an article published in Forbes magazine by Carl Schramm, former president and CEO of the Kaufman Foundation and now a university professor at Syracuse. In 1,500 words, Carl recounted the economic odyssey of Syracuse and our region, from salt to canal to typewriters and radar, and now to present day and what he called a litany of embarrassing civic distinctions. His premise, of course, was that our community had turned its back on its most valuable natural resource, the creativity and innovative spirit of our region's residents, And in so doing, we had forfeited our economic future. I, for one, don't think either is true. We didn't forget how to innovate when Carrier moved its manufacturing to Asia. In fact, the opposite is true. In an ironically bitter twist, Carrier actually invested in our ability to innovate at the same time that they moved production overseas. And still today, the DeWitt campus is the global design and engineering center for Carrier's entire HVAC business, tasked with developing the products that others now build. Likewise, it wasn't a lack of innovation that closed New Venture Gear, but rather an acquisition of a local company by a larger and more ruthless Canadian competitor. Magna bought that company for its capabilities and for its innovation, and they stripped it bare and they left us holding the bag. Every day, businesses in this region still do amazing, innovative things. JADAC in Cicero, itself a spin-out of Welsh Allen, is revolutionizing the use of barcode scanning technology to serve the medical industry, is about to break ground on a $5.5 million expansion. In 2000, JADAC had 3 employees. Today they have 100, and they're about to add 65 more. DLI in Cazenovia is reaching even further, developing and manufacturing radio and microwave components that support a host of new applications, even putting its communication equipment on Mars. DLI is adding new production capabilities and at least 60 new jobs. Pick up our annual report at your table. The stories of reinvention literally jump off the page, like that of the mobile marketing startup, Gliffer, on page 14, which is taking 2-dimensional print ads and turning them into 3D products. It isn't that we forgot how to innovate, but we have clearly made mistakes. We ignored the very reality that Carrier was reacting to, that Asian markets were growing exponentially and domestic markets were shrinking by comparison. We were too slow to react. We were too timid. We weren't unified as a community for sure. Perhaps we were too sentimental about what was to react to what was about to be. Maybe more than anything, we weren't prepared to win. I'll admit that when I read Carl's article, I initially resented it, perhaps more so because some of his criticisms still rang true, just like Dick Case's 6 years ago. But those of you in this room know something that Carl has not yet had the chance to learn, that working together more collaboratively than ever, the seeds of renewal have been planted. Gliffer is just one of 31 companies that populate the modern-day life shop, the Tech Garden, with 150 employees creating new intellectual collisions every single day. Just press rewind for a couple of minutes. Think about Startup Labs. Over 7 years, more than 650 companies entered our region's emerging business competition, and we have invested more than $1.1 million in the best of the best. In 2006, there was no mechanism to identify these companies. There were no tools to support them. Think about how far we've come. Now a group of investors is taking that support a step further, working to launch a $25 million venture fund targeting this region's best innovators, inventions, entrepreneurs, and businesses. 8 years after Carrier pointed the way, we finally have a strategy as a region to help companies here sell to growing global markets and the 6.7 billion customers that live outside the United States. And because the old way wasn't working, this very organization has adapted and embraced the role of literally transforming what was once known as economic development, combining bricks and mortar, community development, workforce alignment, innovation, education, and quality of place into a whole new discipline we call economic opportunity. We staked our very name on it. Now, I guarantee you, if you ask Kevin Warren's staff, they will tell you he is never satisfied. And neither can we. China is catching up. India and Brazil are rising. 60 years ago, we had to outrun 150 million Americans. Today, we have to outrun a world of 7 billion. Now, Charles Darwin once said, "It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the most responsive to change." In that vein, let's consider some of the environmental factors right here in central New York. Only 9% of regional GDP is generated from exports, compared to 13% nationally, and up to 50% in countries like Germany. Household income in our region lags the national average by 20%. More than a quarter of Syracuse families live in poverty. We've only regained 22% of the jobs we lost during the recession, and we are burdened with the highest cost local government structure in the nation, with 4.15 units of local government for every 10,000 residents in this region, nearly 10 times the national average. How long do you think it's safe to rest? What kind of margin for error do we, the 1.4 million people in central New York, have? In a hyper-competitive world, the reward for our progress to date is that we simply get to live another day, to move on to these bigger and more daunting challenges, with luck equipped with a bigger group of partners and a bolder set of solutions. Now, each one of us has a different motivation for this work. Some will reinvent out of necessity, some for fun, for the pure joy of creating and recreating. Some will be motivated by money, others by sheer love of this region. Mine is the simplest of all. Corinne and Ben. One little family that is my world. Now, Ben will turn 1 next week. All the cliches about how fast it goes are true. I probably have 3,000 pictures to tell the story of his first year in this world. But I don't have time to reminisce on it, not yet, because every day with him is a new adventure, and as he changes and grows, what he demands of me and my wife requires us to reinvent ourselves as parents and as individuals every single day in ways both large and small. Ben has 6 signs: more, food, milk, thank you, doggies, please. It's the most spectacular thing. I am actually starting to have conversations with my son. Yes, you can bring me a book. No, you can't eat the doggie's tail. It won't be long, though, before those conversations turn to matters more serious. And I can hear the familiar refrain now. Why? 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 You know what? There are certain conversations I never want to have with my son. I know, a quarter of our community lived in poverty, but truth be told, the other 75% of us were fine. So we ignored it. Yes, Ben, in retrospect, we should have recognized that a governmental structure that was designed for the days of horse and buggies was not compatible with a world of ones and zeros. But what you need to understand is, really and truly understand, is that at the time, the politics of it seemed so difficult and impossible to overcome. Go back to Kevin Warren's speech. He talks about reinvention as a process. First seeing the challenges, then building solutions, executing on them, and finally committing yourself to success and continuous improvement. The challenges in front of us could not be more clear. Even the progress we are making is obvious. Yes, it is hard. Yes, it is incremental. But what remains is still the hardest part of all. Today's marketplace demands not just people and communities and businesses that can identify trends and trouble, but ones that can plan and execute on sound strategies. And with nearly 4,600 cities and regions in this world, even that is not enough. We have to commit to winning, to improving what we do and how we operate, not just once or once a year, but every single day. And we have leaders, nearly 1,100 in this room right now. To build on our progress, we need commitment and an unwillingness to lose. That's a story that was once familiar to this region. It's a story we need to write again. So help me out. Make a commitment of your own right now, today. If your business doesn't export, it's time to start. We can help. If you do export, it's time to grow into a new market. Develop a new product or service that your business doesn't offer today. Help a business get off the ground. How, you might ask? Invest in this region's new venture capital fund or mentor an emerging business. Your expertise can help our next generation of leaders grow, and in turn, they can help you. Commit to working with us to train someone and hire someone through Green Train and Health Train and help lift someone in this community out of poverty by giving them a job. Help attract and retain our next generation of talent. Sign on to Project ION and hire an intern. Build our region's wealth by circulating more of your dollars right here. Commit to a 10% shift, spending 10% of your dollars with local and independent businesses. Commit to making a simple business connection before you leave here today. Or join the more than 100 business, labor, and community leaders, 8 common councilors, 17 county legislators who have pushed for the creation of a commission on local government modernization to give us the government we need for the 21st century instead of the one that was designed for us more than 200 years ago. Knowing how to reinvent our region is not our challenge, but succeeding sometimes has been. So let's commit to each other right here and right now that we will do what it takes to win. Thank you all very much. That concludes our program. We're so grateful to all of you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next year. Thank you.